We got a whole lot of healing to do. A whole lot. And by healing, I mean healing the trauma, the continual trauma that our government creates in our society, media, movies, music, and then the physical violence that erupts from that. I mean, look what's happening I guess it's happening around the nation. I didn't know about this because I don't watch the news, but I just recently saw John Joseph talk about this. He's at John Joseph Discipline. He talked about the fact that I guess people are keying Teslas in New York City. I had no idea. I had no idea. I guess it's happening around the country. Wild, absolutely wild. That's what I'm talking about. These people, again, politicians, news, media, celebrities, movies, music, they put out these ideas, this propaganda, this brainwashing, this agitation, and it triggers people, induces trauma, triggers people, mind controls people, and makes them do things. Their whole goal is to change our behavior. Their whole goal is to make people behave in ways that benefit them, that do not benefit us. Making people buy the foods that these corporations, these multinational, super, super sketchy corporations create with seed oils, with corn syrups, with sugars, with excitotoxins / chemical flavor enhancers to make it more addictive, with dyes, with preservatives, with hydrogenated oils. The body doesn't know what to do with the hydrogenated oil. See, all those things make the food last longer on the shelf, look better to the eye, taste better to the mouth. It's trickery of the senses. All those things maximize profits for those companies, and it could be argued, and I'm in this camp, that there is another deeper, more sinister reason that those companies and the federal government of the United States via the Food and Drug Administration allow those companies to do that. There's a deeper, more sinister reason. We really can't get into it here, but if you know, you know. If you know, let me know in the comment section down below. But type in code and write in code, and don't be, super obvious about it unless you want to. You do you. I'm a little bit more, I talk in lots of codes here on YouTube because censorship is real and it's going down. I think there's a more sinister reason for that happening. That creates trauma. That creates physical trauma in the body. It creates inflammation, creates addiction. Sugar is very addictive. These foods are crafted in a way they introduce most of the packaged foods in the grocery store. By the way, the grocery store is, every time I walk in there, I view it as a ticking time bomb. All those foods that are packaged and processed and all of those shitty ingredients in there, they're disasters for our health. So I look at these things and I'm like, oh my gosh, the grocery store is filled with these things. All of it creates trauma. When they pit us against one another, black versus white, gay versus straight, vax versus anti-vax, rich versus poor. What are the others? There's a whole bunch of ways they divide and conquer, creates trauma. When they use the media and celebrities and politicians and public health officials to fearmonger people. Remember, fear is the mind killer. It shuts down the prefrontal cortex, makes us unable to use reason and logic, puts us in a state of puts us in a state of easily being manipulated. Fear and rushing are their two favorite weapons, because when you're fearful and you're not thinking straight, you are more easily manipulated. When you're rushing and you don't have time to sit and go, let me just center myself and think about the situation from a rational, logical standpoint, and then take action. When you're rushing, you don't have the chance to do that because we gotta move fast. We gotta move fast. This is where you get your warp speed stupidity. This is where you get the stupidity that Nancy Pelosi said back in 2011 about the Affordable Care Act aka Obamacare. We got to pass it so we can find out what's in it. Let's pass the law, get it on the books, and then find out what's in it. This is how stupid these people are. And people are waking up to the bullshit. I feel we're going to be okay because people are seeing the bullshit. This is also what happens when 2 weeks after the tragedy in early 2000s, when those buildings were hit by those planes, supposedly, allegedly. 2 weeks after that, what's the law? What bill got passed? The Patriot Act. 2 weeks. What does every psychologist, psychiatrist, counselor, or therapist tell someone to not do when they're in a state of grieving and loss and mourning and when something bad has happened in their life? What do they tell them not to do? Don't make any big moves in your life for 6 months to a year. Standard practice. Any therapist, counselor will tell you that. What did our federal government do? This is how I know they're BS and they don't work for us. They have an agenda. It's called the Hegelian dialectic. They create a problem that elicits a reaction, and then they have the solution loaded up, ready to rock and roll. They passed that Patriot Act 2 weeks after that situation because they had to capitalize on the mental state. Americans were so angry and so fearful and so agitated, they had to capitalize quickly and move fast. This is how you know you're dealing with some sons of bitches. No other way to say it. Fear and rushing, Hegelian dialectic, Cloward Piven. There's another one that I'm forgetting at the moment. Hegelian dialectic, Cloward Piven, fear and rushing. There's another process that it's escaped my mind, but it's, this is what they do. People are waking up to it because what's happening now is their system is starting to crumble down. And people are like, oh, my kid who graduated college can't find a good job, but yet now my kid has all these tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands in college debt. The system is starting to break down, all by design. They've been breaking it down for a long time by design. That's the Cloward Piven. Overwhelm government systems to the point where they break down, right? People are freaking out because if they're on government assistance, the government's like, yeah, we're pulling back all the assistance. Heaven forbid the government stop funding the military industrial complex. Heaven forbid. See, they can't do that because just like Rome, they have to maintain the military-industrial complex so they can maintain their monopoly on power in the world. This is why Saddam Hussein goes bye-bye when he tries to sell his gold or his oil for gold and his country's done. This is why Muammar Gaddafi goes bye-bye when he tries to sell his oil for gold. And oh, by the way, I believe it was NATO or the UN in conjunction with the US, they also destroyed what many believe to be the eighth wonder of the world, which was Libya's Muammar Gaddafi's brainchild. Not saying he was the greatest guy, but he did give the Libyan people what many believe to be the eighth wonder of the world, which was an engineering marvel. It was an aqueduct system that was bringing water to the desert so they can grow food there. Libya doesn't have any natural rivers. Imagine that. Wrap your mind around that, especially if you're living in the West, in the United States. They don't have any natural rivers, but they have an incredible body of water underneath in a certain part of Libya. He was pumping that up, distributing it around Libya. The forces destroyed part of that, a lot of it. And what does that do? That puts the people that need that food and water, need that water to grow food, in an extreme situation. 200 to 600,000 Iraqis unalived during the bullshit operation that Bush led. How are you going to bring freedom and democracy to an unalived person? Heartbreaking. That's why I say the government is primary objective. They'll bill it as freedom and democracy, but what they're really dealing is in trauma. They're dealing in trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, intellectual trauma, and at the high end, underlying all of it is spiritual trauma, because it is a spiritual war. No, make no mistake about it. I was talking with a friend recently about this. We have layers upon layers upon layers of trauma that they have introduced, again, from all those different places: the government, the media, the movies, the music, the television shows, the celebrities. Trauma, trauma, trauma is their whole name of the game. It's so wild. I was talking about this with her, and it's just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. Trauma can manifest in such a way as, the government and their covert action agencies create psyops and operations to get women to think that men are the problem. This is what happened in the feminism movement, and Aaron Russo talks about it. And also, I got a video queued up with Gloria Steinem talking about her association with the CIA and the bullshit scam she ran on American women, saying, hey, you don't need men, get them out of the house. We'll take care of you. Do you have any idea the trauma that does to children? Not having a mom and a dad in the home. Sometimes the kids can be okay. Most of the time, the kids have some sort of issue, mommy issue or daddy issue, something, because ideally all animals on earth have two parents. And the growth of the child, the development of the child is better when the two parents are around. You don't see animals and stuff being like, peace out, I'm going away. All animals and all creatures on earth are designed to have two parents. You need two parents, but this is the inverted way in the psychological operations that the GOV does. Super detrimental. Now, granted, many people are waking up to it, which is super awesome. They're waking up to a lot of the bullshit. They're definitely waking up to the poisoning of the food. They're waking up to the manipulation by media and the propaganda machines and covert action agencies, right? They're waking up to the fact that our government is owned and operated by, that state in the Middle East, starts with an I, ends with an L, and not the American people. This is why we went into Iraq. This is why we went into Libya. This is why Donald Trump is pushing to go into Iran. I hope that people wake up before that bullshit happens, because what I tell Americans is this: you're next. We're next. They've been attacking us using silent weapons for quiet wars for decades anyway. That's where I'm talking about the food, the media, the music, the frequency wars, the spiritual war, the psychological wars, the info wars. They've been attacking us like that for decades. But they want to go a whole nother level. They want to go 15-minute cities. They want to go smart grid, control your every move, surveil you at all points using their AI engine. They want people to take all sorts of medications and vaccinations. It's wild. It is wild, the agenda that these people want to put to people. And it's all for control. It's all to manipulate the mind and capture the hearts and minds of Americans so that they do what these power elite want them to do. There you go. I hope you're seeing the level of trauma in the world, and I hope you're protecting yourself by tuning up your diet, again, making a list of those things not to eat, and also not watching the media, because we talk about solutions, not watching the media, not watching mainstream television, being also careful about now, the government is moving into social media and YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, and they have their, operatives in those areas. You can tell an operative by a couple things. One, they never say anything bad about Israel. That's super red flag. This is why how you know Ben Shapiro's an operative, how you know Jonathan Cahn is an operative. They're an operative. They never say anything bad about that country. You also know they're an operative if they promote agitation, if they promote pointing the finger at Arabs and Muslims. I'm not saying Arabs and Muslims maybe haven't caused problems in the history of the world or aren't, but I do know that the agitation, this is what you get when you read Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini. I do believe, based on observation of the world and my own research, that they want to bring about WW3. Trump's been tweeting heavy about it for a long time because if they bring about WW3 instigated by going into Iran, which God hope this doesn't happen, we're in a real pickle because then the whole world can just have this massive, fight, and they'll be able to implement, which is their final plan, which they want to do is order out of chaos, NWO. You know what it stands for. I'm not going to say it here because I don't want the little ticker down below. But all these people want is that. There's my piece. Trauma is the name of the game. They want to traumatize people in covert and overt ways, in indirectly and directly. They want to do it mostly in a subversive way, via the music, via the media, via the movies, via the politicians, via the food, right? Via the medicines. They want to traumatize human beings in as many ways as possible because that weakens human beings. They don't want strong people. They don't want strong people thinking for themselves, critically thinking, connecting the dots, not eating the bullshit food that is approved by the FDA, not taking the bullshit medicines that are approved by the FDA. They don't want people living by the motto of let food be thy medicine from Hippocrates. They don't want people growing their own stuff. They don't want people being self-reliant. They want people reliant and dependent on a system because then they can puppet master people and say, hey, actually don't say anything bad about us or you'll lose your little government stipend or you'll lose something else. That's what they want. There's my piece. Trauma is the name of the game, and the GOV and the powers that run the GOV are masters at implementing trauma for human beings. So watch your back out there. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate you very much. If you haven't checked out One Life, you can do that at thisismyonelife.com. That is the system I created to help you win the game of life, primarily to do your mission in the world. There is a section in One Life that is called How to Find Your Mission in Life, and it's super, super vital, especially right now in our world, that you are on your purpose and you're on your mission. My friend Brandon Kroll, my good friend Brandon Kroll, he's been a guest on my interview series twice. He said something very profound the other day. He said, if you don't have a purpose in life, you will be a pawn in another man's game. Let that sink in. If you don't have a purpose in life, you will be a pawn in another man's game. The people that have a purpose in life, not all of them, but most of them, the ones that have deep, I don't know if I want to say that. What I will say is this. I believe that the reason many people pay so much attention to the gov, to the media, to the news, to the bullshit, is because they may not be on their purpose as much as they could be. Let's put it that way. I think that's appropriate. When I watch media movies, or used to watch media movies, I'm very selective anymore. When I watch media movies, yeah, sure, I used to watch morning shows. I stay as far away from that sketchy shit as possible now because I know what it is. I know about, what is it, was it Mockingbird? The operation the CIA uses to manipulate people. I know about the testimony in the 70s that the CIA was asked in front of Congress. Congress said, hey, do you have any people in media? They're like, yeah, we do. Congress said, well, tell us about it. The guy's like, well, let's talk about this offline. That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. And then again, once you start to see, and you see with discerning eyes, you start to see the brainwashing coming out of Hollywood. You start to see the subtle forms of manipulation. You start to see the subversion in movies and music. You see it all the places. And then what you do is you protect your most precious asset, which is your mind. Make no mistake about it. At the end of the day, the battle is in the mind, right? You don't watch those movies coming out of Hollywood. You don't listen to that music coming out of Hollywood. You do not watch the news that is controlled by a very few people who run our government and who work for and who tell our government what to do. You protect your most valuable asset, which is your consciousness, because it's all right up there. The battle is in the mind. This is also why I'm not fearful of Muslims or Arabs, because I know who runs Hollywood. I know who runs the music industry. I know who runs the news industry and newspapers. I know who runs politicians. I know who pays them. APAC is part of it. Super wealthy Israeli donors are part of it. This is where you get your Miriam Adelson and others. I know what Vegas is and sporting and sports industry is, and I know who runs it, and I know who runs the gambling, and I also know who runs PORN sites and companies, majority, ownership in those companies. I know who runs those, so I know who the biggest threat to humankind is on the planet, and it is not Arab and Muslim people. It's that other country in the Middle East, starts with I, ends with L. We don't really talk about the full name because, people are still waking up about it, and they're super, super powerful in the world. And until all human beings wake up to who is creating all the trauma, all the problems in America and in the world, it won't be solved. But people are waking up, make no mistake about it. There you go. There's my piece. Thanks for watching this video. I appreciate you very much. Leave a comment in the section down below recommending your favorite documentary or resource or book about the awakening to information and knowledge that is happening in the world. I would appreciate it. Also, check out One Life at thisismyonelife.com. Check out the Great Awakening Guide at greatawakeningguide.com. And also, check out the Focus and Flow product and apparel line that is product and apparel for conscious creators, to remind you that you're a creator. And the best way to create is from a focused, deliberate way, right? Taking back control of your consciousness and using it to create a heaven on earth type of experience instead of a hell on earth type of experience. They want a hell on earth type of experience. We want a heaven on earth type of experience. Thanks so much. I appreciate you very much. I'll talk to you in the next one. All the best, health, wealth, and success. Bye-bye.